As we go through life, we will meet a variety of people and we will build complicated personal relationships with them. There are various types of relationships such as friends, work, romantic, and family relationships. It is important to remember that relationships are as individual and different as the people who are a part of them. There are different expectations in every relationship. Sometimes these expectations are made clear by talking about them, but other times they are just unspoken rules that develop as people spend time together. In this series, we're going to talk about different aspects of relationships from different point of view with Dr. Malcolm Fardis, Kiana, Adam, and Sanas. Today's question is how much to tell about yourself in a relationship. So let's start with Kiana. What do you think?
Well, I think it really depends. Like, if I met someone at the beginning, maybe I don't even want to tell them my real name, just because you don't want to share so much. And then I had lots of experience, and I'm still not, maybe I'm dating this guy for 6 months, and he still doesn't know where I live or, where I work. It's just easier, because I believe it takes 6 months to know someone, because in 6 months everybody put on a show, and for me it's always safer to share less until I'm completely know that person, I'm sure about it.
Okay, Sana,
I agree with what Kiana's saying. If that takes time to build that trust, so you're comfortable sharing all the information personal about yourself, when to meet the family, when to come over, know where you work, live. Because if something happens along the way, it doesn't work out, then you have all these situations that can happen. He could come to your work, or he could, all sorts of things. So, but again, I do think that the more you also want to share at the beginning, that's okay too, because it gives you a sense of freedom, that you're not really hiding anything. So,
Adam, what do you think? As a guy's
perspective, how much do you tell your relationship? Well, obviously time is a factor. At the beginning, you might not want to share everything, and then towards, as it progresses, you want to give them more and more of the information. But I always say this to my dates or whoever I'm talking. I say, I like to get to know you. Maybe even I like you, right, at the first stage, at get-go. But it's the things that I don't know about you that I'm liking at the moment. Maybe if you tell me more about yourself, I'll either like them or not like them. But as it stands, we're good. So the question becomes, how much of that do I want to know? Sometimes it backfires, and it's maybe better to be a little bit more strategic in spurts and tell them as time goes by. So.
One thing I noticed about your latest perspective, like you just don't want to share personal information with them, like as in, like you don't want them to know where you live, maybe you don't want to know who your family is and all that. But I think another point of view is like, the person, the person is safe, it's not about that, but as having a long-term relationship, maybe this person going to be my future husband or something. How much should you share like your past experience, your downtime, your good times you had in life, your downtimes you had in life? So maybe you can tell me.
I think you can share as much as you don't get others involved. Like, I don't necessarily need to share something that it was within my family, and of course it's part of my past too, but it also involves my parents, my parents and family. I believe you can share anything that you can take responsibility for, and if something happens, like, you be in charge, you be control, no one else get hurt.
Sanas, would you think, maybe you have a point of view?
Yeah, I think with the trust factor, but then how do you know if things are going to work if the other person has a limited amount of information about you? The more you divulge and give out, that other person can see if they can fit into your world or even accept you the way that you are with your past, with your experiences, how you think, how your family is. So, and now my views change where let's get it all out there, just get it out there and find out that way rather than come down the road where the other person says, oh, I can't, I just found out this about you that you hadn't told me, and I just don't think it'll. And once you're invested,
sure.
like,
Well,
so get it all out there.
But I would think it's a little alarming. I mean, I think if I met a girl and she just got it out there and started putting all this information on me, like what her desires are, what her intentions are, and so forth, without allowing me to really see if, I think this is the generation of you get free samples at Haagen-Dazs, and so maybe you should get tits and pieces of someone's life as opposed to having the full scoop at the beginning. And so you're kind of like, man, I didn't really want this vanilla with pecan, chocolate, and so forth.
Well, some guys would disagree. They would want to know more to make a better decision from the get-go, instead of either waste their time or waste the other person's time. And they would want to know more just from the beginning, so.
But there's no, that's relationship, you gotta build it little at a time. If you leave it let it go all out there, kind of like ended it at the same time too. There's nothing, that person won't be interesting anymore. What's one part of a relationship that going it is like you get to know that person little at a time.
But there's so many things you can share. I'm pretty sure even if you told as much about yourself as you wanted to in a couple hours, you'll still have more to say down the road. Like it's not done in 2 hours. Like you can't. I'm not talking about that. But
what if you have something negative in the past, right? And if you say that to a person that you just met maybe for on a second date or a third date, and that could impact in a negative way on that person judging you, but
honestly, I want them to know.
But without even spending time to really know you.
But you can tell a lot about the person from what their opinion is on that experience you had. If they're not willing to understand, then you know what? You don't have to continue with that person, because that person is going to have issues maybe with other things.
Do you agree with that?
I
don't agree with it. It's just because and from a perspective of a man, and not even a man, but from the person receiving a conversation, just the theory, the concept of the communication, I don't want to be receiving. The point is to exchange, but to be sort of equal through this process of the communication.
Right, I agree.
So this is my name, this is my name, this is my address,
right.
And then it kind of versus, let me tell you the 20 things about me and the 20 things you might not like
well, I don't
about
mean it
me.
like that, but it naturally play it out. Right.
Yeah, but I don't even think, and that's the part of, I would say, the problem of dating, modern day dating. So you get to certain likes and dislikes in your life. And you think that the person that you're going to find or you want to be with has to have those similar likes or dislikes. And then when they don't line up, you move away. You jump to another one because there's an issue of quantity, right? There's everyone. You go everywhere. You're meeting with social media.
Right, but don't you want them to know who you really are so that they can show you who they are? And if you hide all that and refrain, then you can't really know the truth about yourself and the other person.
I don't believe you can tell someone who you are. I think that as much as you want to, maybe you'd be lying to yourself if you think that you can verbally or communicate to another person who you are.
Oh yeah, I get that. You have to show them. Right.
As Kiana said from the beginning, it's only takes 6 months to really know somebody. So
even more than maybe years, right?
Yeah,
maybe.
And if you judge by somebody's personality by just their past, I think that's just
right. But your
judgment.
Past is also your life.
Communication is more than Communication is more than telling and talking, right? There's body language, there's expressions, there's emotion, there's facial expression. There's so much more. The tone, the level of control, the vibes. So when the question is how much do you tell, how much do you specifically speak, I say speaking may be a byproduct. It might be the secondary thing of this whole thing. It's the everything before it, the eye contact, the confidence, the way, the chemistry, so many things that become relevant prior to making that determination of how much you can really tell someone.
Yeah, and I think my point is I don't want to be afraid of what the other person thinks if I divulge some information about myself. I want to know if they're going to judge me for X, Y, or Z. Well, that will tell me a lot about them, and whether I even want to continue talking to them. So I don't want to be afraid of being judged.
So, Dr. Faris, you see there's different point of views.
Right.
What is your opinion?
Well, I feel like the act of disclosing things about oneself is difficult, because on the one hand, we might worry that we are bragging too much, or maybe our life is boring and uninteresting, or we might worry that I'm revealing too much. So it's a difficult thing to determine with certainty how much I need to be telling the other person. One of the things I liked about what you said, Afshin, is that you develop a sense of how much to disclose based on how much you hear from the other person. And for that, you need to be really present in the moment. That you may say, you start perhaps with some things that are more impersonal, so more factual, and things that maybe a lot of people know about you. And as you move through the process, then you perhaps disclose more emotional and personally significant things about yourself. So this is something that there's actual principle, they call it reciprocity, reciprocal, mutual, two-sided, in that way that people essentially try to be reciprocal, that you disclose some things, they disclose some other things, and this is how you develop closeness and intimacy. There's something about what Kiana said which I liked, which is although I feel like it's important for us to show ourselves to the person that we might be interested in, there is something, perhaps I guess maybe we could call it an element of mystery that keeps a relationship interesting and alive. That it's almost like you tell the partner, tell the person some things about yourself, but not everything. And then that keeps a little bit of mystery alive, that they want to get to know you more. I don't mean this in a way of playing games with them, but you are essentially cautious and measured and careful in how much you reveal to the other person. One thing that I think was mentioned maybe a little earlier by you, Sanaz, which is the issue of trust, and self-disclosure absolutely follows the element of trust. How much can you trust the other person determines how much you're going to tell them, or should determine how much you're going to do that.
And what if like you have some negative past and you think you know that the relationship that you just started, it might stop it too soon without that person giving time to really know you? Should you share that from the beginning, or should you just let that pass 1 or 2 years? What do you think?
I think that's an individual decision. It seems like how Sanaz was thinking about it, actually it looks like she put some thought into this, that she uses this almost as a diagnostic tool to see if that person is a good fit. Can they tolerate this about me? I feel like there may not be one correct answer. Perhaps, I guess, if you want to follow the general principle, you would essentially wait for the right time to disclose things that are more personal. But I can see your point also that if you don't want to drag the process out too much, you may in fact, say some things about yourself that are potentially not very pleasant, and see how the other person takes them. That could be also, if you're willing to what might come afterwards, that might work for you too.
Adam, what do you think?
Well, it's hard. I mean, it becomes an issue of how much detail. And I thought about it. I mean, my younger self, I said everything. And the biggest problem with younger generations, and I think being young, is that you divulge all this information. You want to say everything. You want to be heard. You want to talk. You want to do those things. And then as you age, you understand the concept of communication and understanding the other person, and that any relationship starts off not me, but us, right? In any context, whether it's you approach someone or you're dating them or you're married to them. So that us is an equal. It's an exchange back and forward. You send something, get something back, and you're in the moment, you listen and you observe. And so how much do I tell that person? Back to the theme of the question of how much do I tell them? So, well, based on those preliminary back and forth, approaching it cautiously, you then make that determination of how much I should do and when and so forth.
Would you tell them about your exes?
That is a very good question. I've debated that, and I think it's all, believe it or not, I think it's based on the other person. I think that you can very, very quickly assess whether that person is open and understanding of these certain things or not. And that might be a very small portion of their personality, meaning the fact that they accept a pass, or if they show some type of jealousy or something of that sort, it might be mild. But if you were to divulge that information, it would make them extreme in that instance, or it would put fuel on that fire. And I think that those types of candidates should not be disqualified at the get-go. You shouldn't say that person, because they show this minimal sign of jealousy, I can ignite it, and I know I can do that. That person's no longer a viable option for me. So I assess it based on the person.
When do you share it? Like on a second date, on a 6 month?
So
When do you start? Or what if you were married before? Would you let that person know too?
Okay, so there's two big things. One is I think a marriage is
Just answer the question.
so marriage, I think it's critical.
like Dilly
Yes,
Dally.
no, marriage,
Yes or no?
yes,
Would you-
yes.
okay.
You would tell
Okay.
someone that you were previously married. Now I'll tell
Okay.
you why. Simply, all they got to do is go online and put your name, and then
Yeah.
it's like, well, you didn't tell me this key fact, and then she's mad at you, right?
That's the thing, and you brought up a good point earlier about the youth. When I was younger, it didn't matter so much to me the time, because I was new to dating, so I thought I had all the time in the world. As I got older, dating and having experience, time is limited, and I wanted it to be more meaningful, and no games. Getting to the point, learning as much about each other as we can, and seeing this is going to be a good fit.
Yeah, but when you say no games is by laying it down on them, the martial law.
Wait,
and
I'm not
saying,
playing any games.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's not games. The fact that you sort of go off and say 30 minutes of let me tell you about me and what I want and so forth.
No, I wouldn't be like,
ju-
that's
I ju-
it, but that would be a red flag, so to speak, of maybe we're not as compatible as we thought we were.
That vetting process, I think, is more detrimental to your potential selection or finding of a significant
So
other.
you just stick it out.
I
You just,
think
like,
that
do
I
this.
would never. I would play the field. I think that I
Play
would
the field? Okay,
Play
so-
play it as in.
Wait a minute.
That's a good. It's a good.
So,
I
okay.
play the
so
play
date
the chess
multiple
match.
people,
You-
like
you
we
gotta,
talked about in a previous episode. Okay.
Go ahead.
So date multiple people at the same time.
No.
to
I
know
apologize.
them.
Let me say play. I meant play the chess
Okay.
match in terms of you and the other person,
Oh, okay,
not
got it,
specifically
got it.
like
Okay.
you have 20 girlfriends and or
Okay, play
relationships. But specifically, you if that person moves up their pawn, you move a pawn. If you kind
You
of
see it as like, okay.
a kind of a match. And
I don't want to even think that far. I just want to know as much as that person is willing to tell me, so there won't be any surprises down the road
so my
for
question,
both of us.
So my question to you is: do you think relationships are simple or complex?
I think they can be simple if we make them simple. But
I think
people love to complicate things. these days.
She asked a good question from you. She said, "Would you tell about your ex or marriage?" So let me ask you that question
Would you?
as a girl.
Oh, I thought you told me.
Would you tell about your ex to your next date, or you have a potential what that person could be, your ideal?
Well, well, it depends how long I know that person, because I think it's kind of rude on the second date start talking about your ex, and he will be like, "What's the point?" It's like you're comparing. I think another thing about talking about your ex is like you start comparing that person to your
Yeah.
exes. So it's kind of rude.
If
to
you're
that
talking
yeah.
about, your ex on the second date, you're probably not over him. But I mean, if he came to you and asked and
Asked,
said,
yeah,
so how's your, how long ago were you in a relationship? The guy.
I
Do you think it's a
still-
good question to ask if somebody, like on a second date, somebody
No, I've been
asks
asked before.
you? Do you think it's a good question to be asked? Like you're getting asked about on the second date, getting asked about your.
No, I feel if someone asked me that is that person is insecure.
Yes.
So that's how I feel.
That's a good point, because I think like it kind of blocks you from establishing that chemistry when you're just having somebody else in between you. Mm-hmm. Correct. And you wanted to add something, Anna?
No, just because. So the question was, would you tell about a previous? She had asked a previous marriage, and I would tell about the previous marriage, not just because I would get caught, but because that's the truth. But then in terms of what I tell them about my ex and period, if they asked. If they ask,
It's worse when they find out later. Like,
Yeah.
why didn't you tell me at the time? But that's a big thing. That's going to be harder down the
the
road.
ex or
I
the
think.
husband, not the husband. The
You're in the clear
marriage.
when you've told the other person
Everything.
as much as and how you are, because they are not going to be either surprised, disappointed, expect something. Look, I want to go into this and I want a serious relationship and I want to start a family. That person, if they don't know these things and they think, well,
What
maybe
if
she's dating for
you
fun.
give it some time? Tell them like 1 year from now, 7 months from now.
Yeah, and then the
not-
other person can be like, I want a family too. Yeah, that's something I'm thinking. Or, yeah, and then the guy's like, no, this isn't, And then that way the woman's not wasting her time with someone who she thinks that it could be long term.
Right.
I don't know. I think more
So you're
better,
talking about
and
okay, wasting time.
you're
and
freeing,
I
yeah.
see,
Because
I
as you
see.
get older and you're dating, you just don't have all this time in the world.
I truly, okay, my friends, and
What feels like it.
the friends of mine who, because I'm at the point where I would say all my friends are married except me, which is, which is, just says a little bit about me and probably about my friends, right? But the friend portion, I asked them, I kind of look into it, and I do my own evaluation, and they say it was the person that I was with just knew the right things to say or the right things not to say. So it was like, and then I think to myself, you have more of a chance to say something wrong if you start putting everything on the table and start putting full disclosure and than not doing that. So it's
But
different
the truth is the truth. So what's happened has happened. So even if you put it out there, I mean,
but it might not be indicative of who you are. I mean, the fact that you had
But
a bad
sure,
ex
but,
or something could cause more damage there than prove the fact that, oh, this was just like, I'm over it and look who I've become.
yeah, well, again, that other person is going to understand that's your past.
Mm-hmm.
But you're just sharing how your life has been before you met them.
Doctor-
And don't worry about your friends now if they're married. You don't know what's going to happen down the road.
Dr. Faris.
You might be married, they might not be.
Well, let's see what Dr. Faris have as a conclusion for our discussion. What do you think is right to say? How much to share?
I feel like self-disclosure is fundamentally an issue of trust, and it's an issue of boundaries. So if a person is able to trust the other person, then it makes it easier to disclose things about oneself. There's one type of self-disclosure which probably is less useful, and that's the type that we call catharsis. Mm-hmm. Catharsis is telling about yourself to bring some kind of relief and comfort to yourself instead of promoting the relationship. What that means is that if a person has issues on their mind that they're distressed about and they want to get it off their chest, and they put everything out on the table for the other person to hear. That type of self-disclosure does not promote the relationship. So by and large, I am generally in favor of a somewhat careful and methodic way of approaching self-disclosure. In which we assess the other person and their level of interest to see what makes sense to disclose to them. If we give the other person lots of things about our personal past and history, some of which may be uninteresting to them or irrelevant to them, it will not necessarily improve the odds of a relationship surviving as much. The general principles that I want to reiterate is trust and boundaries, and keeping things somewhat reciprocal.
Okay, perfect. I guess that's all we have for this episode. Thank you all for your input.
Thank you.
Watch our future episodes for our in-depth discussion of relationships. True love isn't found, it's built. Thank you for being with us.